Nextcloud or OwnCloud? Which one should you actually use? In this video I'm going to set up both from scratch in Docker, put them behind Nginx and then compare them in 8 real-world categories. I've recommended and used Nextcloud for years, but depending on what we find out today, I might change my mind. Let's find out. Here's the plan. I'll deploy Nextcloud and OwnCloud using the simplest Docker Compose setups, exactly like the official documentation show. Then we put them behind an Nginx reverse proxy with SSL certificates and compare them in these 8 categories after we did the first time setup. At the end, I give you my personal recommendation based on different use cases. In my other videos, I've built a lot with Nextcloud already. A standard Docker Compose setup, Redis caching, Collabora, and the high performance backend for video calls. So I know how far you can push Nextcloud. Today I'm asking a simple question. Is OwnCloud actually a better choice for some people? But before we jump into the setups, a big thank you to our today's sponsor, Verpex. If you're planning to self-host Nextcloud or OwnCloud on a virtual private server, Verpex is a great match. You'll get full root access and fast NVMe storage on their VPS plans. And if you're not ready yet for a VPS, they also offer affordable web hosting with free SSL, free migrations and daily backups, plus 24/7 expert support and a money-back guarantee, which is great if you're just testing out the waters. In short, VPS for control and performance, or web hosting if you just want something simple that's maintained for you. Either way, the support team is available 24/7 and the onboarding is straightforward. If you want to try out Verpex, you find the link to current VPS offers in the description down below and in the pinned comment. Now let's build our clouds. I'm keeping the setup fair and minimal. For each stack, I will use the official documentation Docker Hub for Nextcloud and OwnCloud documentation for OwnCloud. Nginx proxies both over subdomains with free Let's Encrypt SSL certificates. No fancy tuning, no caching layers, just what you get out of the box. Let's start with the Nextcloud setup. The YAML file for Docker Compose comes straight from the Nextcloud Docker Hub. We just need to copy this, and then we can head straight to the terminal. We first make a new directory called Nextcloud and then we change into it. Then we create a new file called dockercompose.yaml, either with nano or vim, it doesn't really matter. And then we paste in what we copied from Docker Hub. There's just 2 things we need to add in this file, a MySQL root password and a MySQL user password. And I like to do it with environment files, that's why in the Docker Compose file you just add this, $, curly brackets, and then the name of the variable. And then we save this and we create a new file called .env. And in this env file, you just enter the name of the variable that you put in the Docker Compose file equals, and then the password that you're choosing. And then it should look like this. You have an env file and a dockercompose.yaml file. And then with the command docker compose up-d, you can start pulling those images and then it will start up those containers. And with the command docker ps, you can check if everything is up and running. And to make this Nextcloud available through a subdomain, we go to etc nginx sites available, and here we create a new file with nano, and then we just give it a name. Here we create a simple Nginx config, but don't worry, you will find these files and all the commands in the description to download. Just change the subdomain to your subdomain and make sure that the port is the same port like the one in the Docker Compose file. And with that config file saved, we can change into sites enabled, and in here we create a symbolic link to that config file. So it will look something like this. And to request a free SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt, we just enter the command certbot --nginx-d and then your subdomain, in my case nextcloud.sysadminhub.com. And now it tells us that it successfully deployed the certificate for our subdomain. And if you want to know more about Nginx and Let's Encrypt certificates and the exact commands, check out my channel page. I have videos there with the commands and the explanation how this all works. And when we check it out in the browser, we are greeted with the admin setup of the Nextcloud. So we just fill this out so we have a Nextcloud to compare with. And just like that, we have our Nextcloud up and running. So now let's do the same with OwnCloud. From their documentation page, we also get a dockercompose.yaml file and also a .env file. But let's start with the Docker Compose file. So let's copy this and then let's go straight to the terminal. And here we're just doing the same steps. We make a new directory, change into it, and then create a Docker Compose file. And for the env file, we don't need to create the file. We just copy this because this is a whole command. And then we just run this whole command as is, just like that. It won't output anything, but if we check it, we have a env file in here now. And if we enter there, then we already have everything we need. We just need to change a few little things because we're already using port 8080 for Nextcloud. So I'm going to change this to something like 8090. And then the trusted domains, I'm going to enter our subdomain here. So it will look something like this. And then obviously choose a secure password for your admin. We can save this now as well. And then run the command docker compose up-d. And if everything worked well, we can run docker ps and it will show us our OwnCloud in here. And the steps for the Nginx reverse proxy are the same like before. First, create a config file, then create a symbolic link, test the configuration, request a certificate, that's it. And with all that done in the browser, it will look like this. So we can log in with the admin and the password that we configured in the environment file. And this is how it looks like after you log in. You have your OwnCloud up and running in no time. If you enjoy my content, comment, leave a like and consider subscribing. It really helps out small channels like mine grow. And if you'd like to support the work that I do and unlock some extra perks, check out my Patreon. Your support helps me keep creating more videos like this. Thanks for being awesome. Now that we have both clouds up and running, we can start comparing them. The first category is setup and installation. Both platforms are straightforward to deploy. Docker Compose runs smoothly as usual, and that's why I always enjoy working with Docker. Nextcloud has a huge ecosystem around it. Lots of community guides, tutorials, and examples that make the setup very beginner friendly. OwnCloud's documentation, on the other hand, is very clean and structured, which is great if you prefer an official, structured approach when following the setup steps. In terms of requirements, both are lightweight in their default configurations. You have an app container each, a database, persistent storage, and that's it. How much RAM, CPU, and storage you need depends greatly on how many users are active at the same time and what features you're all actively using. If you just want to get started quickly, there's no major difference here. Both are easy to bring online. Now let's have a look at their performance. On a clean setup, both dashboards load quickly, but with large folders or many small files, the feel depends a lot on your storage and database. Without tuning, Nextcloud can feel heavier once you enable many apps. OwnCloud keeps a consistent minimal feel. And speaking of, let's have a look at apps and extensions. This is where Nextcloud shines. Tons and tons and tons of apps and integration and so many things to try out and play around with. OwnCloud goes leaner, fewer distractions, fewer moving parts out of the box. But there's still a lot of apps that you can install later on into your OwnCloud. So with the apps and integrations, the devil is in the details and in those apps themselves. But it doesn't matter if you have loads of apps if no one is using them. Let's have a look at users, roles, and sharing. Both of them handle users, groups, and sharing very well. If you need fine-grained controls and lots of app-level permissions, Nextcloud has more to offer. For straightforward team file sharing, OwnCloud simplicity can be an advantage. And with every user comes risks of data breaches. That's why security and updates are important in every project. Two-factor authentication, password policies, and update flow. Both Nextcloud and OwnCloud take security seriously. They both have frequent and predictable updates. And updates are not only for back-end features and security, but also for the user interface and mobile devices. Nextcloud's user interface feels modern and app-driven, and mobile apps are good and actively maintained. OwnCloud's UI is clean and distraction-free. Fewer built-in app services means fewer clicks for pure file workflows. Running your own cloud means you yourself are responsible for uptime and availability. And in case something really bad happens, you need a good backup and migration strategy. For backups, I always recommend volume-based backups. Nextcloud has tons of community guides and even apps for backups, but OwnCloud can be backed up easily as well. But of course, it heavily depends on your setup. Docker setups require a different strategy than bare metal installations. Last but not least, let's look at integrations. Both support WebDAV and external storage. Nextcloud's ecosystem is broader and OwnCloud's approach is clean and stable. A quick summary. If you want a feature-rich personal cloud with tons of apps and constant innovation, Nextcloud feels great. If you want simple, reliable team file sharing with less UI clutter, OwnCloud deserves your attention. Before I tell you my personal opinion, a quick thank you again to Verpex for sponsoring this video. A reliable server for your project is just one click away. Link is in the description. For Homelabs and power users who love apps and integrations, I still recommend Nextcloud, especially if you add Redis, Collabora and a high-performance backend for talk. For small teams that mostly need clean file sharing with fewer distractions, OwnCloud is a legit pick and might even feel faster because it stays lean. But there are more use cases than that. For families or casual users, Nextcloud's built-in apps, calendar, talk, notes make it a great all-in-one platform. For performance-sensitive setups where you want a lean UI, OwnCloud stays fast and consistent. And if you plan to integrate lots of extra services, external storages, collaboration tools, Nextcloud's ecosystem gives you more room to grow. So depending on what you're building, each platform has its own perks. I personally will stick with Nextcloud because of all the apps and integrations, but OwnCloud has definitely earned its place among self-hosted solutions. I'm curious what you're thinking. Tell me in the comments how you feel about Nextcloud and OwnCloud. And do you want to see more of OwnCloud or maybe another cloud solution? And if you want to see more about Nextcloud, then check out my Nextcloud playlist. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time.